It's Monday, February 11th, 2013. I'm Kevin McShann, and this is the McShann Sports Beat Report.
Euphoria is meeting reality here. The Ravens may have just won a championship, but they're also now playing catch-up. The Baltimore Brass will meet in Florida this weekend to devise a plan for the coming months. Job one is getting a contract done with Joe Flacco. On Wednesday, General Manager Ozzie Newsome acknowledged both the benefits of doing a deal early and also the fact that the team may need to use the exclusive franchise tag, expected to be set at about $20 million, to keep Flacco off the market.
What you have to look at is what the Redskins did this past year to move up to get Robert Griffin. You know, if someone thinks that a quarterback is that valuable, and I'm sure you can talk to Bruce and Mike and Mr. Snyder, and they're very happy with RG3 right now, and they don't mind not having those draft picks. So I can't monitor, I don't know what 31 other teams are doing, so we got to prepare ourselves for it.
The timing of the Flacco deal could mean millions in cap savings, and even save a job or two. But owner Steve Bisciotti was clear in saying the club will not mortgage its future, as it did in 2001, to keep a championship roster intact.
We're not going to get caught up in the moment and do things to our salary cap and make decisions in the euphoria of winning that could hurt us in 2014 and 15 like we did in 2001.
Newsome also said that the franchise tag will not be used on any player other than Flacco, meaning that absent new deals, Ed Reed, Donnell Ellerbe, and Paul Kruger will all be free agents. And that means that with 10 veterans, not including those three or Flacco, occupying $70 million in cap space, some tough decisions will need to be made. So just as the franchise puts away its second Lombardi trophy, work on a third begins now. In Owings Mills, Albert Breer, NFL Network.
We are joined by the agent for Joe Flacco, Joe Linton, now with us on NFL Live. All right, Joe, you said you think Flacco should be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Make your case.
Well, I think when you do a deal of this magnitude, you have to look at two things. One is the past and present body of work, what he's done the last 5 years. Obviously, what he's done in the last 4 or 5 weeks, certainly. And then you have to make a projection of what's he going to be the next 4 or 5 years. And, you know, him hitting in the time of Mr. Herman's physical traits, never been hurt. The calmness by which he plays the game, the student of the game that he is. Nobody better right now. Like I said, it should be rewarded accordingly.
Well, listen, that's the position you should take as his agent. Flacco should try to get every single dollar he can. Let me present the Ravens' counter to that argument. Since 2008, when he entered the league, there have been 22 quarterbacks that have been selected to the Pro Bowl. Joe Flacco, not one of them. Since 2008, his total QBR 17th in the league. What's your response to that?
Fine. I'm okay with that. Anybody that watches the film in the media knows what he is on the field. I'm a football guy. I watch the tape every week, and the people in the media, like Jaws, etc., that watch the film every week, they know what he is. So I don't always feel like I have to account for his plan of film. I think the wins and losses are what it's all about, and everybody will tell you that.
Right, no question. and he's won a bunch of playoff games, 6 playoff games, more than anybody else in NFL history on the road. But sometimes those game stats can be a little more deceiving. For example, in one of those road playoff wins, he was 4 of 10 for 39 yards, and Manning can lose a playoff game where he goes 28 of 40 for 400 yards.
No question about it. But it depends on what your gauge is. I guess I would have to turn it back on you and say, are we gauging contracts by success and wins and losses on the field, or by stats?
Well, timing is everything. Timing is everything, certainly, and you guys are getting an opportunity when he could not be hot.
Well, we agreed to disagree in July. I can tell you this: Joe had a year where he threw 10 touchdowns and 15 picks, and they didn't make the playoffs. So we wouldn't be having these discussions. But he had an exemplary year. And the one thing he does that, again, most people in the media don't see is he never loses a game. He never does those things where you scratch your head and say, "What was he thinking?" Never does it. Or I shouldn't say never, but you can count them on one hand. And the point is that as a film watcher, you know what this kid is, and you know what he's going to become. He's only going to get better. And the reason he's gotten so good this year is because the game continues to slow down for him, and that allows him to take advantage of some traits.
There's no question about that. His demeanor in the postseason and the way he handled the big moments was fantastic. Now, he's already said he wants to be a Raven for life. Does that in any way hurt your leverage?
No, he does. The place is great. He loves his teammates. He loves the city. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with telling the truth, and it's really how he feels.
With a situation with Baltimore, they're going to be presented with some salary cap issues. Obviously, they have to worry about replacing Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Paul Kruger, the defensive end on that team. If he wants to be a Raven for life, will you as his agent be sensitive to the needs of the team?
Secondarily to the needs of Joe Flacco, certainly.
When do you think discussions will begin with Ozzie Newsome and everybody about getting a long-term deal done for Joe?
I think whenever they're ready to talk. I saw those guys down in New Orleans for a minute. We didn't talk about the contract, but it was a handshake and congratulations kind of thing. So look, there's no animosity here. This isn't one of these us against them deals. Everything they've done up to this point is with respect, with morality, with dignity. I'd really like those guys. Pat Moriarty is a pro. Pat Moriarty should have been interviewed for GM jobs around the league. He's a great guy. Ozzie's a pro. The owner does things the right way. So there's no animosity here, just like I'm sure they wouldn't say there's any towards Joe. So it's just, a bunch of adults trying to get in the same room and do something that works for both sides.
Well, it certainly seems like it has been a great relationship between the Ravens and Joe Flacco, and it looks like both sides want to see it continue. So we'll see how quickly we're talking about Joe Flacco being one of the highest paid players in the NFL. Joe, we appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Trey. Bye-bye.
Setting the precedence for your market value is assessed by the constant nature of your consistency, level of production on the field, and a positive return on your company's investment. And for Baltimore Ravens quarterback Joe Flacco, a solid performance in the most important game of the year, ultimately obtaining and achieving the most coveted prize in all of professional football, and the cherry on top of the cake in being named the most valuable player in Super Bowl 47 are all valuable bargaining chips to have as he enters the offseason, headed for the negotiating table as he attempts to hammer out a contract that will make him a Raven for life. Flacco, 28, who is younger than Denver Broncos quarterback Peyton Manning, who is earning $18 million a season. By comparison, New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees inked a 5-year extension worth $100 million with the Florida League last offseason, giving him an average annual base salary of $20 million. And Flacco now has as many Super Bowl rings as both of them. And according to his agent, that number is all that matters. ESPN's NFL insiders Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen recently joined Mike and Mike in the Morning to further discuss how the impending deal for Flacco will affect the Ravens' ability to be athletically and financially competitive in 2013.
Our man Mort is now in the house via the Subway Fresh Take hotline. So, Mort, we were talking about Joe Flacco. What kind of contract, what bounty of riches is he going to be getting from the Baltimore Ravens?
Well, it's like we said when Drew Brees signed his contract, which was basically a $20 million per year average. He'll be the highest paid quarterback until the next contract comes along. And so I expect Joe Flacco to equal or exceed Drew Brees' contract. And then Aaron Rodgers and will become the next highest paid, will become the highest paid quarterback. So, that's the expectation, is that Flacco, for a period of time, maybe a year, will become the highest paid quarterback in football. He'll hit that $20 million platform. I don't have much doubt about that. And people will say, well, you're going to eat up your salary cap. You got all these guys out there like Donnell Ellerbe, a linebacker. It's pretty important, especially now that you're losing Ray Lewis, and played very well in the Super Bowl in this season. You got Paul Kruger, and do you have to cut Anquan Bolden? Well, one thing that the Ravens have to do is address the contracts of Terrell Suggs and Haloti Ngata. Those guys are, Suggs counts like $13 million against the cap, and Ngata $11.5 million. And the way you do it is you restructure these deals, and if you have an owner who's got some cash, Steve Bisciotti, it's easy for me to spend Steve's money, but if you have the cash, you can restructure these deals and lower your cap numbers. And so Joe Flacco actually can have a lower cap number than if he were franchised by the Ravens if they get a multi-year deal done. I expect it to get done. They might buy some time by putting a franchise tag on him, but there's no reason to think he won't be the highest paid quarterback in football when this is finished.
Completely agree with that. You mentioned some of the other names on Baltimore. We know the teams never come back fully intact, so who do you think will not be on that team next year?
Adam Schefter, during Super Bowl week, talked about the possibility of Anquan Bolden and his $5.4 million salary being one of the casualties. I'll tell you, that's emotionally, sentimentally, and practically speaking on the football field, that's a tough one. You think about his value in playoffs. I mean, he caught 4 touchdown passes in postseason, only 3 during the regular season. And, Kurt Warner, never wanted to give up Anquan Bolden with the Arizona Cardinals, and I don't imagine Joe Flacco would like to, no matter how many weapons you have with Dennis Pitta and Torrey Smith and the other guys. But Kerry Williams, the corner who filled in for Ladarius Webb, we can say, okay, Kerry Williams played well, but Ladarius Webb's coming back from injury. I think Donnell Ellerbe and Paul Kruger are 2 key guys, especially Ellerbe, just because of the loss of Ray Lewis going forward.
Let's go to our number one guy, Adam Schefter, our NFL insider extraordinaire, joins us on the Subway Fresh Take hotline. Schefter, give us a sense of how you expect the Flacco contract negotiations to go from here. His agent makes no bones about it. He wants to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. How will that go?
I think here's what people have to remember. Number one, the Ravens right now are projected to be about $5 million over the salary cap going into the free agent signing period. That's right now, but that's before Flacco is under contract. So now, if they tag him, that's 14.6. Now you're $19.6 million over the salary cap. To get a long-term deal done, whether it's $19, $20 million a year, then you're going to get some salary cap relief from that 14.6 number. It probably won't be that high this year. I'd have to sit down and break down the numbers, but it wouldn't be 14.6. So the Ravens are going to want to do a long-term deal, and they're not going to want to use the exclusive franchise tag for that reason because it's $20 million. So now you're $25 million over the cap. Now you've got to make more corresponding roster moves, but you can begin to look at their roster and begin to see some of the decisions that they'll have to make. Now they can always restructure Terrell Suggs, restructure Haloti Ngata. There's some deals out there they can restructure. If they were to release Anquan Bolden and Jacoby Jones, as unpalatable as that sounds, they would save $9 million right there. So those 2 guys, I guess, would be candidates for restructures, for release, for something. But they're going to have to make a number of moves, and they're going to turn to Flacco in a long-term deal to help him out, and I think they'll get that going here pretty soon.
Seems pretty evident that he is going to get that deal. It just makes cap sense for them to do the long-term deal. If you're a guy like him, Mike, do you consider taking a little less so you don't have to cut Anquan Bolden, so you don't have to cut Jacoby Jones?
Listen, you're going to have to make a move of some sort with Anquan Bolden. I think it's going to be too difficult for them to carry their contract. You can't keep everybody. And it's almost like this. When you win the Super Bowl, that's the great moment. Everybody's happy. Now, the reality of it, everybody's going to want to get paid. Everybody's going to want situation was set up to where they were going to have to make moves to release players and restructure contracts. There's no other choice. Okay, so even if Flacco takes a cap-friendly deal, which how friendly can it possibly be? It's going to be a big deal. You're going to have to make a number of corresponding moves. And so maybe there's a little relief there that he can provide. I'm sure he can on a long-term contract, but it's all relative. Let's just say they get that cap number this year at $12 million. $12 million. Now we're $17 million over, okay? And we've got to make $17 million worth of moves just to get back under the cap. Forget about being in a position to make any other moves or draft players.
For this past season, Flacco participated in all 16 games. Of his 531 passing attempts, he connected on 317. He threw 22 touchdowns versus 10 interceptions. Through the air, he amassed a total of 3,817 yards. He averaged 33.2 passing attempts per game. In terms of yardage, his average total was 238.6 yards per contest. He was sacked 35 times and had a passer efficiency rating of 59.7%. Throughout the duration of his career, Flacco has proven to be a true Iron Man of Steel, suiting up for all 80 games of his 2,489 passing attempts. He's found receivers on the other end of his passes 1,507 times. His passer efficiency rating for his entire body of work stands at 60.5%. He averages 31.1 passing attempts per contest for his career, 220.4 yards per game. He's put the ball in the air for a total of 17,633 yards. He has 102 career touchdowns, 56 interceptions, and he's been sacked a grand total of 174 times. Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless of ESPN's First Take join this instant debate to provide their consensus on just how much Flacco is worth and how he stacks up against other elite competition around the league.
I'm going to say he's worth more than Brady is getting. Listen to the words that I just used. He's worth more than Brady is getting. Not more than Brady deserves, but more than Brady is getting. For example, you've got Drew Brees, $100 million, $60 million guarantees. Drew Brees is not just an elite quarterback. He's box office. I don't think Flacco deserves as much as Brees. Flacco, I look at Tom Brady. I don't think he deserves more than Tom Brady. But the $60 million in guarantee for Drew Brees, okay, you've got Tom Brady, $72 million, 48.5, I believe, guaranteed. I think Flacco deserves more than $48 million. When you've got Mario Williams, who's pulled off the greatest heist in recent NFL history with the $50 million in guarantees he's gotten from the Buffalo Bills. When you look at a guy like Michael Vick, who obviously is getting $40 million in guarantees. When you look at a Megatron and Calvin Johnson that's getting about $48 million in guarantees, I look at Flacco as deserving more than that. So because he deserves more than that, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions in the postseason, all 5 years, getting to the playoffs, 3 AFC championship games, a Super Bowl appearance, now a Super Bowl championship, and a Super Bowl MVP. And I look at the guys who are in that $50 million category who are actually getting paid more guaranteed dollars than Tom Brady when they clearly don't deserve it, meaning a Mario Williams. I say, excuse me, that's not Flacco's problem. The market, timing is everything, and obviously he's produced at a time when his contract is up. And you don't see a Kaepernick, a Russell Wilson, or an RG3 coming up to take his job. So for me, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, you've got to pay this man a minimum of $50 million in guaranteed dollars, which would mean he would get more than Tom Brady.
even though I believe Tom Brady deserves more than $50 million in guarantees.
By the way, you left out Sam Bradford, who got $50 million to sign before the
That's right.
change.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I forgot his name. Yes,
really, what you're telling me is Tom Brady is dramatically underpaid. That's your point, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Tom Brady deserves Drew Brees type money.
Or more.
Yeah, at least Drew Brees type. At least, well, I don't want to say more than Drew Brees because I think in recent memory, Drew Brees has been just as good as Tom Brady.
I don't think so.
And he's got a more recent Super Bowl championship on his resume. Tom Brady hasn't won a Super Bowl in 9 years. You look at Drew Brees, he's just a couple of years removed from a Super Bowl championship. I'm looking at that and I'm saying $60 million he got in guaranteed dollars. I think Tom Brady is right in that ballpark.
Okay, but obviously Brady got to a Super Bowl since Brees had, at a time before Brees has, right?
What's the ring? What's the ring at? What's the ring? What's the ring?
Okay, close. Okay, so
Yeah,
remember,
that don't count.
okay, remember yesterday on our Super Bowl special show, we ranked the top 5 all-time quarterbacks, and you had Tom Brady number 2 on your list. So given the fact that he's still got some years to go, then he's dramatically underpaid. So that's the point of the question here, is that you're saying Flacco deserves more than an all-time number 2 ranked quarterback who's woefully underpaid, right?
No, I'm saying that Joe Flacco deserves more than the Patriots have decided to pay one of the all-time greats. That doesn't mean he deserves more than Tom Brady, but he does deserve more than the Patriots that Tom Brady allowed the Patriots to pay him. There's a difference.
Okay. I'm right where I was on Thursday when we dealt with this possibility that Joe Flacco, if the Ravens won the Super Bowl, could be the MVP. And I said to you then on Thursday, if that happens, Stephen A., then the Ravens are stuck with Joe Flacco in as much as they have no choice but to pay him Drew Brees ballpark money. I don't know, $1 here and there, however it shakes out. But they are stuck. If they're already on record, the owner's on record as saying he will be the face of our franchise, our quarterback for the next 10 years, then you have to pay him market money right now, which would be Drew Brees money. And you have to do that in spite of the fact, as I keep reminding you and everybody else, that this past regular season, Joe Flacco had the 25th ranked QBR, the 25th worst QBR, one notch below Jake Locker. In this past season, this regular season, he recorded the 2 worst QBRs for games since the stat was introduced in 2008. That was a .3 at Houston and a .4 at home against Peyton Manning. That on a scale of 0 to 100, .3, .4. So there's some risk still involved here, but I cannot argue with what I just watched with my own 2 eyes Joe Flacco do at Denver, at Foxborough for a second straight year in an AFC Championship game, and then in a Super Bowl game. Can't argue, but God bless, because you now have no choice but to give him the kind of money you're talking about.
Following the biggest game of his life, Super Bowl 47 MVP Joe Flacco caught up with ESPN's Sal Palantonio to discuss the ebb and flows of the game, what it means to him and his teammates to be Super Bowl champions, and his future as a Raven.
With the MVP, Joe Flacco, Joe, what a journey from growing up in Little Audubon, New Jersey, to becoming the MVP of the Super Bowl on the world stage. How can you imagine that journey?
It's unbelievable. Great group of guys. Just a great way to win it tonight. I don't think it's sunk in yet, so kind of just trying to go through the motions and see what it brings. But it's a great group of guys we have in that locker room. Unbelievable winning with them.
Take us back into this football game. After the power outage, the Niners have a surge of offense. You get the ball deep in your territory. What are you telling you guys to rally them back?
Listen, I think we're a very calm group, and we've been put in those situations before. We still had the lead. We just knew we had to go down and put some drives together because they were going at that point. They were playing really well. I think we were able to do that. I wish we would have been able to put the ball in the end zone, but we were able to have some pretty good drives there. Not only clock, but put points on the board, and they ended up to be some big points.
over and over again on third down, you were looking for Anquan Bolden. Why was that happening, and why was it open so much?
It's just kind of those things. We have the routes, and he's the guy that ended up coming open on some of them. Some of them were little option routes, so we had a couple different things that he could have done, and he did a great job. And he also has the strongest hands I've ever seen, so he's come up with some big ones.
How satisfying is this for you personally? So many naysayers, so many critics about number 5.
I don't know if it has anything to do with that. It's sad. It's just exciting because this is what you dream of as a football player for your whole life. Is playing in this game and winning it. And nobody can ever take that away from us.
How much satisfaction do you get to win another one for Ray Lewis on the last day he puts on a Ravens uniform?
It's awesome. We're all a team, and he's a very big part of it. And he wanted this just as much or more for us than he did for himself, and that's what makes it special. He wanted us to feel this, and we wanted to make sure that he felt it again.
Joe, on this ride through the postseason, you have not thrown an interception. You've been perfectly efficient. What's been the key?
The key is we're coming together. We got a good offense. Our offensive line really played well. Our receivers just made some plays. I mean, Anquan, Dennis, Torrey, Jacoby, Ed Dixon today. Our backs out of the backfield. So when you come together like that and you have confidence, this is what ends up happening.
At halftime, when you had that big lead, what was the message of the head coach, John Harbaugh, to you guys?
You know what? It was just go out there to the offense. It was go out there and get completions, run the ball well, and continue to do what we've been doing. Continue to put pressure on these guys and put some more points up. I was kind of walking around like, hey, man, 30 more minutes of our best football, and we will be champions. And the locker room was ready to go, and it was just a special moment.
Joe, you're MVP of the Super Bowl. How about a big smile for sports?
Yeah, you got it.
It's going to be a big parade in Audubon, New Jersey.
It's going to be big. It's going to be a big parade in Baltimore first, and those people deserve it. Great fans, great city, and there's no better place to bring this thing back to.
Joe, you're a Raven for life, right?
Raven for life, man. That's the way I see it.
Congratulations, Joe.
Cementing your place in the hollow halls of Canton, the birthplace of professional football, may often start with a judgment on the aptitude and strength of your athletic ability. However, your leadership and moral compass of both poise and toughness also factor into the equation. During the first 5 years of Joe Flacco's highly successful career, he's made an appearance in the AFC Championship game 3 times, and this past Sunday, he finally received the validation for all of his hard work by leading the Ravens to their second Lombardi trophy in franchise history. He's evolved both as a person and as a player, not to mention the maturity he's shown as the face of the franchise on the offensive side of the football in the land of the Crab King. Now, with revered Baltimore son Ray Lewis now calling it a career, the torch has now been passed to Flacco to be the emotional and spiritual leader of this banner franchise. And if past behaviors are any indication of what the future holds, then the Ravens will be in good hands under Flacco's stewardship. Now it's left in the hands of the Ravens front office and general manager Ozzie Newsome to strike a mutually beneficial accord on a financial balance sheet that works for all parties involved. At the end of the day, based on a true track record of success and model of excellence, the Ravens and Flacco should be able to get on the same page, which will allow them to continue to play their same consistent and winning brand of football. Kevin McShann, Sports Beat, reports.